Hey everyone, welcome to Cloud Masters. I'm your host Matan, and I'm joined by my co-host Sam Clark. And today we have two guests to dive into one of the bigger challenges that a lot of our customers are facing, especially in 2025, going from GenAI proof of concepts to something that's more production ready. And specifically, we're seeing a lot of migrations happening as teams are moving their workloads from external providers to something that's more enterprise grade. And so today we're here to get the AWS perspective from two experts who are in the trenches on this daily. So first we have Rajan. He's at DoiT, our data and AI practice lead, and he's guiding lots of teams through GenAI migrations. And we also have Joshi. He's the EMEA GenAI Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. And basically, and I hope I'm summarizing this correctly, he's leading the scaling of GenAI services at AWS across EMEA. So he's working with lots of partners like DoiT in their ML practices and their go-to-market strategies. All that to say, he's seen a lot in a relatively short time, and for such a rapidly evolving field like GenAI. So I want to kick things off. I've heard that maybe it's just like an estimate statistic, but 90% of GenAI POCs, proof of concepts, never make it to production. At the same time, we're seeing a shift in 2025 towards production readiness. So Ninad, you're talking to customers and partners constantly. How are you seeing that conversation evolve from experimentation to actual business deployment?
I would rather walk you through like how transformational this journey has been. So when say the whole foundation models, LLMs came out into scene, 2023 was basically the year of POCs, where people were exploring what is generative AI, is this secure? What can I do with this? Everyone wanted, is it cool to become a prompt engineer? And those kind of things were going about. And as we entered into 2024, it became about like, okay, I have done tons of POCs. How do I prioritize my projects? How can I lower my cost? How do even make this real? Or what kind of customization method I should look? And slowly 25 became the like is now basically the year of business value, where customers are looking into much more matured concepts like, okay, how can I transform my own entire business organization? How can I enable my employees to embrace AI? Or how can we make it more deeper and wider? So over this through years, the overall trend has changed, and even the production challenges. So Gen AI is becoming more of a production like a talking point. A lot of use cases now customers are exploring to productionize certain use cases, and now it's settling down, like where over the like past 3 years we have seen over 60% of the IT budgets are expected to increase as well. So in next 3 years, basically over 60% of the budget will focus on like being allocating its IT budget to Gen AI. So this is something which will increase over time, and this is something we'll start seeing into production, but it comes with a lot of challenges as well. like what about cost? Like, how is there a way for me to optimize for the cost? How to make sure like my Gen AI infrastructure is basically model agnostic? Like, how can you have that taken into place? The biggest and most important, responsible AI. Like how can I ensure that model behaves responsibly and it gives the response that it's supposed to give and not it should not? And the observability and responsible AI is a critical part of it. And this is where these are the core challenges where say we come across like key production challenges, and that's why we are seeing a lot of customers even migrating as well, like to make sure how to meet these kind of goals.
Yeah, maybe we can dive into that. I also heard of that statistic more where like Gen AI is basically going to represent the largest chunk of budget increases, like of IT budget increases. What in your mind, maybe we can dive deeper into those the main reasons, like layer deeper, main reasons that maybe successful demos aren't making the leap into production?
What matters for the customer, and before I start with that, I think it was a BCG report that cited this trend basically. So maybe we can put it in the description as well for viewers to check it out. But I think the biggest challenges that we see of customer of projects not going into production are first of all, it's basically the lack of understanding between technical and the business counterparts, because technical counterparts or stakeholders are looking at it more from like, okay, this is the most coolest thing that will transform like how we work, and it's more like they're looking at it from that domain, whereas the business wants to look at it more from like, okay, how is it going to make process cheaper, better, faster. And if there is a lack of, say, like understanding between these two stakeholders, it simply writes off as like a cool POC project that was there that never took off.
We were talking about FinOps in previous episodes, and like this divide between IT and business, and tagging IT and finance, and like we're in with regards to unit economics and tagging strategies. So it sounds like the same story here, at least with that first problem.
Yeah. Second problem is about inflating costs. Like for when you wanted to start with the POCs, it was quite easy to just get started. But when you start to scale your workloads, the cost becomes a critical factor, because as you are looking into like millions of requests coming over for your bigger platform, the costs start to become much more higher, and that's where customers want to look into much more cost optimized or performance optimized model. And there you have to make a trade-off between cost, latency, and performance. Do you need a strong reasoning model to do a summarization job? Maybe not. And maybe you don't have to overkill that particular task with a reasoning model, but rather you can do with just a simple model that can do the summarization job just as good, but at a lesser cost and lesser overhead of latency as well. So that is the trade-off now customers are seeing, starting to see the understanding of the overall model market is also kind of evolving. So now customers are asking for deeper probing questions like, okay, how about latency? How about throughput? Where the model is residing, residency is also a bigger concern. That is also like takes me to a third point, which is about where the model is hosted and how it is hosted. Like, does customer have the right to host the model in their own VPC? Or where the data will go? Like, if is this the model gonna be using data to train, like use customer data to train itself? Those kind of broader questions come into play, and that's why we see like customers are now asking for much more like this kind of sanity questions now that is coming into forefront now, and that is the reason why people are looking to productionize. Like these are the issues primarily that lead to this concerns.
I like to always characterize these, um, these challenges with actual customer stories. Rajan, do you have anything that's kind of like a typical story that you've run into from a customer you've worked with where, you know, these production roadblocks are huge pain points?
Yeah, definitely. And Ninad, I must say, like our thoughts align to a large extent. Like what we are seeing with customers day to day. So I can start by giving some examples. Like we have a fintech customer trying to build a platform where they can provide financial guidance to their users using GenAI. And they started with a POC on a well-known third-party platform using their APIs. And the real fun started when they tried to scale to production. So they started facing latency issues. So latency, which was once acceptable for a POC, now became a poor experience for the users. And as the number of requests increase and they have more users starting to use their application, they started facing rate limits, throttling issues, and eventually they also face throughput issues. Also, one another factor which we are seeing is the you brought in the cost factor, right? So a lot of these third party platforms, they have this pay per token cost model, and that tends to spike out when you deploy it to production. Then I can list another example of a customer in the insurance space. We have many of them actually, but this one was trying to use Gen AI to scan their policy documents and automate the entire insurance workflow. And their team was using models from different vendors, and not only the models but also the surrounding tools. And this kind of fragmented tooling made their architecture so complex that eventually it became difficult to adhere to all these compliance and security requirements like data locality and data storage, which you named some of those.
Yeah, and maybe with this data point, I think this has been also just I would like to second to Rajan's thought there, like lack of data strategy. Like as soon as you go into production, the Gen AI problem becomes a data problem. The project that was supposed to be of couple of $1,000 suddenly spikes into like a couple of $100,000 or even millions of dollars, and it's all because like a Gen AI workload or a model is going to be as intelligent as the data is being given to it. If you don't give it right context, it will not work well. And that's where the AI problem translates into a whole new data problem. And this is where lot of customers like they start with a lot of excitement, like, okay, we'll start with the Gen AI. This is like, oh wow, it generates me a summary altogether. But when you are integrating into your own enterprise workflows or enterprise solutions, well, yeah, you have to interact with the data, and that's where the lack of, if the company never focused or prioritized the data strategy, that comes back and haunts this into the reality again. Like, okay, we never had the data strategy in first place, and now we cannot get the best out of Gen AI. So, data strategy, lack of data strategy is again one of the reasons why projects are not going into production. And another is about how the landscape is changing. The skills that were relevant, say, a couple of years back, the demand of such skills to productionize the workload is also like people who have such skills is are very few. And that's where that is also another factor, like, okay, even if there is an intent for the customer, they are lacking, they don't have enough skills to basically productionize it as well.
Let's say a customer recognizes like we can't go on with these external APIs with these other like hodgepodge of tooling. We need to move to something enterprise grade. In this case, let's say Amazon Bedrock. I think Rajan or not, feel free to chime in. But when someone comes to you and says we need to migrate, that can mean a whole lot of different things. So how do you help them understand what they're actually signing up for, and maybe if there's even different levels of complexity involved there, depending on their situation? Like, how would you approach that?
Yeah, I think coming to the migration problem, I think from AWS we have it broken down in three steps. Basically, that's our classic AWS migration framework, which is assess, mobilize, and migrate. So assess is all about evaluating the customer use case, or like, is there even a need for migration or not? So work backwards from the problem. Then mobilize is about like, okay, how can we make it so easy for the customer that the migration is as seamless as possible for them? So this is done through our partners like do it themselves, and then also a lot of funding options that are there to help them mobilize and then eventually achieve the migration. So that's where the migration happens, so the remaining steps that are there. So this same framework also applies in the Gen AI world as well, when you have to. However, the way to do it, like how it is going to be achieved, is something we'll talk further in this discussion. But I think this is how, from an AWS point of view, migration will be achieved.
Yeah. And before we jump onto the complexities, right, Matan, like I also want to share some of my experiences while working with customers. Like whenever we talk about the migration topic, there are a lot of anxieties that bubble up, right? So, particularly because teams have spent a lot of time building these POCs or even moving to production, right? To in these third-party platforms, and they start asking questions like, "Hey, do we need to redo all the work? Are all of these kind of sunken costs now? What about the security and compliance that we have set up in these platforms, right?" So. Uh, like not only the complexities but also the anxieties that start to build up when we start discussing about migration, and on the complexities side, I would like to share some of the patterns that in general we have seen while talking to customers. So the first pattern is just the endpoint swap. This is the most straightforward scenario, and often the starting point for a lot of customers. So here they are kind of redirecting their application from an externally third-party API to an Amazon Bedrock or SageMaker endpoint. And the main effort involved here is mostly around prompt engineering and rigorous testing to make sure that they get the same speed, accuracy, and output, and even the performance on this new platform like AWS, for example. And I think this is the quickest path to migrate to AWS and can typically take between 1 to 4 weeks. Another pattern which we have seen is around the advanced workload migrations. It typically involves moving the model and the components along with the API. So it's not just the model, but the surrounding components. So for example, like you may have fine-tuned a particular model on this platform, and then you might need to either just host that model onto the target platform like AWS, or you may need to replicate the entire fine-tuning process. And maybe it's associated MLOps or data pipelines as well. And this can typically take around maybe 2 to 3 months or so. Then if we go further down that road, then we also see that some customers are migrating the entire application stack. So they have the model, the surrounding components. Like for example, if it's the RAG use case, then it can involve not just migrating the model, but the embeddings model, the knowledge base, its vector store, and so forth. If we go further, if it's an agentic use case, then it can involve the migration of its agents, the orchestration involved with it. And not to forget in all this that you also need to take care of the monitoring, the data storage, security, and so forth. So this can be a much complex project and can span across multiple months, maybe 4 to 6 months approximately, or can also take more. And another pattern which we have seen very lately is the code and legacy system modernization. So here the customers are not just looking to migrate the application, but they are also trying to use GenAI to translate and refactor their legacy code bases. For example, like we have customers who are looking to migrate from outdated languages like ASP.NET Java to some modern frameworks. And we also have some customers who are trying to migrate from monoliths to kind of microservices architecture.
Yeah, and just adding to this, like the comment that Rajan just made about like how challenging it is to basically like how much effort it takes to basically migrate, especially around GenAI workloads as well, because the GenAI workloads are typically evolved around prompts. Like although it looks like okay blurb of text and you need to do it looks like it looks simple for when you have a very single chat kind of interaction going on, but when you're looking at it like it's at an infra level or at an application level, and that too working at scale where you have probably millions of customers using your GenAI workload, and then you have a scaled solution where you have to migrate prompt in that scenario where the prompt plays a critical role in every interaction when you're having a model. It becomes like a huge problem to mitigate, and that's why we have like a three-step framework, again inspiring from the original AWS migration framework, where we basically we basically provide a framework where customers how can they evaluate and migrate their GenAI workload all using Amazon Bedrock. So, for example, say you have been using a certain prompt. First step would be about just selecting the right prompt, like what was there for the use case. Then you first evaluate it against the source model, like say any of the source model you have been using, be it Llama, Mistral, Claude, whichever model you are using, and then you basically benchmark it, so you evaluate it, so you can evaluate it using say a model evaluation which is available in Bedrock. So it has a cool thing called LLM as a judge, where a model itself evaluates how the other model is behaving. Because before this you had two options. One was either go like human in the loop, so you basically have humans evaluating it manually, which is of course cumbersome and costs explode like crazy on that. Whereas the second approach was conventional quantitative approach, where you have traditional matrix, which was pretty good in the conventional ML world, but when you have a model generating the text, that basically do not work. So you need a hybrid approach, and that's where LLM as a judge shines. So it just eases it out for you. Now, when you have done evaluating the source model, you have to now evaluate the target model. And many people make mistake in that, is that the prompt that was probably working for you in Mistral or Llama will not work for you for when you're evaluating it with Claude. The models behave differently, or or respond differently to a different prompt structure, and it's so important. I cannot emphasize it so much, like how important it is to optimize the prompt. And this is where this becomes like how are you, like it becomes so cumbersome for the customers, like how even in the world you are going to migrate so many prompts for a complex application. And that's where I think a lot of customers enjoy it as well. Like there is a cool feature called automatic prompt optimizer, APO, that automatically migrates the prompt like from the source model to the target model, and just eases it for you. And the third step is basically once you have evaluated the target model, you compare and then just deploy. And in this way, it just eases out the journey for you to compare the model and then productionize it. So this is basically a framework that we have at AWS for helping our customers looking to migrate.
Rajan, is like I'm wondering what else, like when you say evaluate, like what is LLM as a judge, or what are you, if you're doing a human in the loop, what are you looking at? Like, is it beside, I imagine cost is a thing, but you're also weighing that against other factors.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Ninad brought out an important topic of model evaluation, right? I think the entire migration process, uh, I think, hinges on the evaluation results, right? So uh, I think I would also like to bring to notice how you can evaluate the source model side, right? Because when we are talking to customers, I think these are the questions that we get, like, hey, AWS does provide you with a framework to test the target models, right? Like, but we have not really done some benchmarking of our source models. We just started with these models, right? And in that case, the first thing we recommend our customers is to start creating a golden data set, which can contain of the real world prompts and outputs, and then benchmark the model's performance against different pillars. So the pillars can be like speed, cost, quality, latency, cost per task, etc. Depends on what you're looking for, like. Then there are a variety of open source platforms I would like to mention that provide you frameworks to automate and standardize this kind of evaluation, right? So if you are, for example, if you are doing a general evaluation, then you have systems like Deep Eval, which treat evaluations like small tests, and it's super easy to use. And then you have tools like MLflow and Ragas, which have also become very popular lately, as they can extend this evaluation not just to the models, but you can now evaluate the RAG use cases. Some of them have started helping you out with the agent evaluation as well. So it typically focuses on things like how true the answer is, how precise the context is, and how relevant your output is. And then going further, like, if you want to see what's happening under the hood, and compare the performance, because a lot of times these LLMs and the entire workflows can seem black box to the end user. So to have this kind of monitoring and observability, you have open source tools like Langfuse, which can be very useful for finding and fixing problems in your existing GenAI application. And all in all, these tools can provide you a foundation and for a systematic and kind of trustworthy evaluation of your source models.
Yeah, and just to add on to this, like even customers using, for example, on Bedrock also, they have, I think customers have been like looking into like, okay, how can we have a broader observability of our how our LLMs are behaving? I think this is the biggest problem in terms of or expectation from the customer, because uh, they want to ensure that the model behaves responsibly, adhering to all responsible AI practices of the organization. And observability takes a key pillar while taking even into the productionizing a GenAI workload into account. and not also productionizing, but also when evaluating the performance of a LLM workload, like how it is responding, how fast it is responding, like how many tokens it is consuming, and like from an input and output perspective, and what is the eventual result that is being generated. So if you want to evaluate a model's performance, you need to break it down into two parts basically. One is going to be the quantitative assessment, which is all about the quantitative parameters, like it could be like it could be like traditional ML metrics as well, like it could be precision, recall, F1 scores, which were more about how accurate a result is corresponding to a particular golden data set that Rajan mentioned. So that's where your qualitative metrics shine in. But then you need to also evaluate it more from a qualitative sense, like, because at the end of the day, it's a generative AI model, like the model is generating new information, so it's definitely like there will be like very less chance of like model generating the information as close as possible to the golden data set. It will end up creating something new. So you need to evaluate it more from a human lens, whether it is giving the right context or not, whether it is paraphrasing the response in a good way or not. So that's where you need human evaluation. Also, at the same time, for qualitative metrics, you need to ensure that there are CloudWatch metrics are being monitored for the overall performance of the system. So that's how you can use to have a comprehensive assessment of a GenAI workload.
Yeah. Uh, and I think I heard a anecdote recently, like it's not about the best model, but it's about choosing the right model for your use case, right? So I think you can see like there's a competition between the providers to release a better model every day, right? And I don't think like anyone can keep up to that competition of using the latest model every day in their application. So I think it's very important to understand which model suits your requirements. What is that takes you to choose a model, and then go with that model, and not worry about what models are coming out in the market every day, right? Because it won't get you anywhere. But I just want to highlight like what are the next steps, like once you evaluate these models, right? So after the evaluation is done both on the source side and on the target side, I think now it's the time to compare these two models and the evaluation criterias, and take different factors into account. So different factors again can be cost, reliability, whatever, like the accuracy, and so forth. And once you are once you have that assessment done, uh, we look for if the customer is convinced to go ahead with it, right? So if you see promising results, and most of the cases we see this, then we try to identify a thin slice of the use case with the customer, which can contain of some of the features with high ROI there, right? And then we try to migrate this to AWS. So the idea would be to identify like a vertical slice, so that the customer can actually measure the performance end to end after deploying it on AWS in production, and then follow it up with other features and other use cases later, right? Um, a lot of times we also recommend, and this is I think one of the important factor which we have seen lately, is that when customers are doing this migration, they just migrate these prompts one to one, okay? And a lot of times they complain that, hey, this model is not really good, we are not getting the same results. But I think, as Ninad mentioned, you need to focus on converting these prompts to the requirements of your target model. So if your target model needs the prompt in a different format, I think it's very important to understand its requirements, and not just look for what was working in my source model or for my source model there. Um, and for this purpose, you can go for some services within Bedrock, like the prompt optimizer and the prompt conversion tool, which not only just converts the prompts into the target model available on Bedrock, but it also optimizes those prompts further. And you can also version these prompts within AWS later on, so that you can do kind of A/B testing with different prompts, and compare and measure the results of these different prompt versions.
So we've talked a fair bit about the technical aspect. Within enterprise, there's also the other part. And I remember when I was at uni, we talked about the legal team being a big problem for a lot of major deployments. Within any organization, you're going to have compliance, you're going to have budgets, you're going to have security. So what does it look like, and how do we help to navigate those conversations and build the internal support? I mean, Ninad, you've probably got some good info from how AWS can help with that.
Yeah. I think, like you rightly called out, another factor where things get stalled is just because of the legal aspect, like legal compliance aspect of it as well. Like, is it like a HIPAA compliant or a GDPR compliant or not, or it adheres to EU AI Act or not? Those are like common concerns where, say, I would say, like projects, like customers wants to know, like before making a decision. And that's why also, like, we have seen a lot of customers moving to Bedrock as well at the same time, because on Bedrock you basically have a unified model access and tooling, that too in customers own VPC environment, that too in their own within their own VPC environment. So that really ensures and gives them like a full control over how their data will be treated with the model. So they have a much more making sure they, when they build it, when they build application on top of Bedrock, their application is compliant. Another thing we have seen is like how to make sure, how to ensure or navigate integration and infrastructure complexity, because customers have workloads running on prem, they have running on legacy workloads. How to even navigate through that? And I think this is another reason we have seen, and this is where I think like partners like DoiT really help customers out in terms of easing that integration. Of course, we have the technical expertise that we want to provide from AWS point of view, but this is where I think like our like how we work together with our partners really help, because you need someone to help customers in terms of navigating through that complexity, and it cannot be done together. It cannot be done unless we are going in it together. I think that is the most crucial part. And then how to have a robust production deployment, like how to ensure that when you're deploying GenAI workload into production, it is ensuring that uptime, the responses are coming in like there is not no significant latency. You have full monitoring and observability on it, and then you have enterprise grade SLAs. So these are the challenges like that are there, and that's how basically that's also something we have seen a lot, like customers are liking about Amazon Bedrock as well in this case, and that's why there has been so much interest about like exploring potentials with migrating to AWS as well.
For lack of a better term, I'm thinking of like on the human side of things, where it's kind of like even you have all the technical proof, like, hey, you shouldn't worry about this, they're still skittish. Like, have you been in a meeting with a customer and maybe that legal person or that person who's kind of being the blocker to this thing going into production, where you have to kind of, from almost an emotional standpoint, address an emotional, not really totally rational objection to this?
I think it's like typically such kind of conversations are dealt with like lot of like they're dealt with quite objectively. These kind of conversations, when we are in the room, like the conversation is about like, okay, what is the cost benefit, what is the ROI it's going to give? And I think, of course, like we have seen like like in some conversations, you have some people in the room who have like some preconceived mindset, and they have some premeditated like some decisions that they already have in mind, like, okay, this is how like they're either fanboys or like they want to they have allegiance to particular workload, but that's very rare. I think most of the times it's all about like looking at things quite objectively, and from on from an AWS point of view, that's our mindset is we want to work backwards from customers problem. Like we want to look at it like, okay, how can we solve customers problem, like what are the key challenges that customers are facing, and then try to see if we and our partners can remediate that problem together or not. And that is something we try to work backwards, and that's why we end up not having such kind of conversations as well, like, and they end up being more pragmatic ones.
I wonder if it brings a new discussion, a new process from legal. Like when I first started at AWS many years ago, we used to talk about using your business insurance in the case that you make a huge mistake and Lambda spins up $1 million bill or something like that. But if I mean, we've talked previously on the podcast about that Canada Airlines situation where the chatbots guaranteed a refund to someone, and the court said you have to do it. If a Gen AI solution starts doing that en masse to full, like really large numbers of customers to a big company, I mean, imagine if Q did it on the Amazon AWS website, right, and started promising refunds. Is there some sort of new legal framework? Is there a risk analysis or benefits analysis that needs to be made there to double check? How can we prevent these things?
Yes, there are various kind of support. So it you have to look at it in two steps. Like the anecdote you also shared about it. It was a classic case of model hallucinating. It is making up responses on its own. That means it went into production before doing the proper evaluation of it, without making sure, like, okay, the model is connected to the right things and it's not going to behave something what it is not being asked to do. And that's why that's why this brings us to the point, like how important it is to have the strong observability and as well as strong evaluation of the model, and then deciding, then have a go no go whether you will go into production or not. And that's why like there is this framework we need to take into account. However, from a legal standpoint, I think there are some resources and materials, probably will put it in, like I'll share it with you that you can share as well. Like there is proper guidance, like how to ensure, like one is at the model level, whether the model itself, the information it is generating, I think it happens quite common in image generation or media generation models, or those kind of use cases, like from where it is generating the image, the data that was used to train such models, was it copyrighted or was it open source. So those kind of things you need to check from the model provider, like whether there's a indemnity provided to the output generated by the model as well. So that is at the model level. Then you have to look at it at the infrastructure level, how the data is being treated within the application. So if you break it down into those two parts, it will become slightly much more easier to navigate the legal aspect of it as well.
Within AWS, I think they have a very good feature and a standout feature, which I almost recommend to all our customers, is the guardrails within Bedrock. I think it is very important to control and understand what goes between the user and the model, and from model back to the user. And guardrail exactly helps us do that. Okay, you can add different kinds of data filters, like profanity filters. You can have PII data filter. You can do ground truth within it. I think that's another important factor. Like how do you verify the accuracy of the information that is generated by the model? And with the ground truth filter or the setting, you can actually do these checks, have these checks, and make sure that the right information always passes on to the users. Another area where you can use these guardrails is particularly, I've seen some customers complaining that we had actually one customer who released a chatbot for a particular purpose or a particular use case, and apparently it was getting misused for some other questions or by some other users. And then if you are using guardrails there, you can actually control for which topics you want your chatbot to be used, or your AI to be used, and you can block from the users the usage of your chatbot for all other topics. So this can be from the legal point of view, as well as from the privacy and security point of view. I think this is one of the most important features that I've come
Yeah.
across.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing this up, Rajan. I think this is something we have seen, like a lot of customers, apart from all the like rest of the features that are there. But I think customers really love the capability of what guardrails brings in, and now it is much more easier for them, like by just having an API invocation, they can also just include guardrail as a construct within their own application, so they can use it for, say, much more broader applications based on running on GenAI. So this gives them a much more broader flexibility. And we are starting to see a lot of like, say, potential challenges being overcome using guardrails, and it kind of pacifies a lot of those concerns as well, like responsible AI concerns that are there, like how the model is going to behave, or at least how you will control a model's behavior. This is something that guardrails does pretty well.
Yeah, I was thinking lawyers must love guardrails. that the guardrails feature.
Actually,
I
the
yeah.
fintech and the insurance space really loves guardrails. Like it makes the AI less succumb to the external mishaps, right? And it brings in a lot of control to these users, especially in the EMEA region where people are worried about data security and all those areas. I think guardrails makes total sense.
So kind of wanted to summarize things. Want to get you guys to summarize things with a question. Just if there's a single thing to take away besides, hey, you should probably use guardrails, is all the migrations you've been involved with. What if you had to pick just one? What's like the one factor that separates the successful migrations from the ones that struggle or stall out?
So maybe I can start, right? So from my experience, I think doing a data-driven decision always is very important, and migration is such an activity which can be very tedious and time-consuming if it is not done right. Uh, so I think having a structured approach wherein you start with a discovery, you try to identify the customer migration triggers, you identify what are the pain points, and following up with a evaluation like the source model evaluation which you talked about, the target model evaluation, then creating an assessment report by comparing these models on different metrics and benchmarks like cost, performance, etc. And then taking a data-driven decision and then doing the migration. So this kind of structured approach kind of helps in the long run. So you can always repeat this in the future if you are willing to migrate or looking to migrate from this model to another as well, right? So I always tell our customers like this is not the end model that you want to be or you will be with, right? So you'll always look to modernize, you'll always look to try out a newer model, and then since this is a cyclic loop in the long run, having it done once correct will help it to kind of build a framework around it and standardize it and repeat it for any other migrations or to different models in the future.
So like really investing in planning, because it's not just whatever the plan you make for that one migration will not just be used for that migration. It can be the foundation for maybe 6-12 months from now you need to migrate again.
Exactly. And you're not going to restrict yourself to only one GenAI use case, right? You have to remember this. Like one use case is just the starting point. Like if you see like all customers are trying to add more and more AI to their workflows these days, right? So this space is going to expand, and we will see like more of these coming in the future. So I think it's and this, the loop is repetitive, as I said, right? So the entire process is repetitive. So I think having done it right the first step, I think it's very important so that you can repeat it later as well.
Yep. And just to add on to this, like I came across this interesting statistic is about in last 6 months, over 20 major model releases happened in the industry. So now you can see with this how quickly the models change. And if you're basing your say whole play around just one single model, like it won't be like say maybe like it won't have the longevity around that, like, and that's where customers are also looking into like how can we be like model agnostic, like how can we ensure that okay, today I'm using model A, but without much friction I want to ensure like say 6 months down the line if there is something like some really cool model out in the market, I should be able to just try it out. I should be able to do it, but it should not impact my rest of the Gen AI work application. So this is also kind of important. So just wanted to emphasize on that part, like I like how crazy it is, like has been in last couple of months, or even last couple of years, like so many models are coming into the market, and how important how challenging it becomes as well, even to assess it. And coming to your part, Matan, that you asked like what is the most critical factor in my view, I think the the most important factor is the discovery and assessment itself, like ROI, like ROI modeling itself at right at the start. Like it is important to set the expectation right, like what is your expectation or outcome, expected outcome with this Gen AI uh, initiative that you're running in your own organization. it is very important to say like, okay, I have been using this workload as a POC, but say 6 months down the line, I'm expecting this much of this much of traffic on my application and this much of interaction. So how much, like what kind of ROI will it give it to me? Like if I'm doing this GenAI initiative, what kind of ROI is it going to deliver either to my customers, or if it's an internal one, what kind of ROI is going to deliver to the business? So that is where I think if that problem is solved at the start itself, rest of the thing become much more easier as well. Like the rest of the migration flow that Rajan talked about becomes much more easy that way, because you have a solid foundation, like a solid assessment and solid expectation that around which you are planning your next steps in.
It's the Gen AI equivalent of having a why.
Yeah, yeah, it's a why, like why
The
even
unite.
you are
It's like,
going
why
through
am I
hassle.
spending so much time on this planning and all this
Yeah,
stuff? Oh wait, because we think it's going to do X, Y, and Z for customers or for our bottom line.
yeah, yeah, it's about why, like why are we even going through this so much of hassle?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
And it
you
forces
rightly
you
put it.
to like, if if you're going into it for the wrong reasons, and it forces you to admit, hey, I'm chasing this out of fear instead of I'm instead of taking a step back and actually thinking about the business case here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were like it's a good sanity check in a way. Like maybe you were just chasing the wrong goal from the start, and this basically gives you that sanity check. Like, okay, were we even chasing the right thing? So this is kind of super critical in my view.
And just to remember that not everything can suit every use case, right? So not every model, just because it's best and top of the market, like, right, it's the latest one may not suit your use case. I think it goes back to the anecdote I was mentioning earlier, right? And there are a lot of new trends coming up and a lot of new features available within AWS now. Like, we didn't even touch base on those models. Like, maybe we need to do another podcast on those. Like, I just remembered, like, we have model distillation right now on Bedrock, right?
Yeah, and like,
So
I feel like you can do 2 episodes on observability,
Yeah.
even like on just like the things that we were saying. Like maybe we need to dive deeper into it. Just like the things that we were saying that customers need to do right in just the planning stages. Like you can probably do episodes on that. I'm also wondering, like, how are people just not desensitized by all these new I see model releases? Like I see some like over the top hyperbolic tweet like, oh, this new model just crushes everything else, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna say the same thing in like 2 months about something else, or even less.
Yeah. And I think this also kind of emphasizes on the aspect like why evaluation is critical, because you see like, okay, there's some hyperbolic tweet coming out like, okay, this is the most intelligent model of all, like a PhD model or a some XYZ kind of model. They are all benchmarked against some common benchmarks. So that may not reflect like a model performance in the real world scenario, because every scenario is different, every use case is different, every use case pertaining to a particular customer is different. And maybe the model was crushing on the benchmarks, but maybe it was just not well suited for your use case. So it's very important to match it down. Maybe you are just overkilling with a particular model for your use case. So that's where model selection plays a critical role as well. Like on what basis you are deciding to choose a particular model.
and just one last thing to add would be also that uh, what I've seen from my experience is the model doesn't really cost you a lot unless you have a very big use case, like, but is the ecosystem that can cost you you don't have if you have not chosen the right one. For example, if you choose the incorrect or the wrong vector database and then use an expensive one with a very small amount of data, then it can you can see like spikes in cost for the vector database, but not really for your Gen AI request, right? So it's the ecosystem that matters and not just the model usage. Okay, like, so it needs, like, you need to focus on the choice of each and every component when you're building your Gen AI application. And as you see the advancement in this Gen AI space, it's not restricted to model. You have the RAG use case, then you have the agentic. Now you're going multi-agent. There's agentic evaluation and so forth, right? So you need to look at it as a ecosystem, as a platform, and not just like the model like a per model scenario?
I think a lot to chew on there. And Ninad, if you're up for it, we can do more recordings, just diving deeper into some of these topics. But I think for now, we're good to wrap it up. So thank you for joining us. I think I mentioned this maybe before we were recording, but first cloud partner to be on an episode with us. So thank you for that. Rajan, you too. Thank you.
And thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ninad, for joining us. Right, I think it's been a pleasure to have you, and I've been working with him day in day out, and it's fantastic. Like the kind of support we are getting from AWS there in helping our customers. So thank you for being here, Ninad, and we look forward to many such recordings in the future.
Likewise.
Yep.
Likewise.
See you, Sam. Wait, cut that part out.